The inn was shrouded in a tense silence, broken only by the sound of chains rattling as Garona shifted uncomfortably on the stool where she sat. Her hands were bound and guards stood vigil around her, their expressions as stern as the atmosphere. Behind her, Jaina, Egwin, and Valeera watched, their faces etched with determination and concern. "I'm ready to go after your son, Garona," Valeera said firmly. "The moment we have a clue where the attackers might have taken him. We saw one of them, an undead witch, carry him off. We need to know." "Stacia," Garona interrupted, her voice trembling. "Her name is Stacia. She's gone. Can't remember." Pressing her head to her forehead as if the act might help her push through the mental fog, Jaina placed a reassuring hand on Garona's shoulder. "A series of spells, mental blocks, many deeply embedded from childhood, obstruct your ability to recall things you've been commanded to forget. Remove any of them and the whole structure of your mind could crash down, like a toppled wall. The faster we proceed, the greater the danger. We must go carefully." Garona's desperation was palpable. "No! Don't you understand? To delay risks my son's life. Break me, if that is what it will take. For the sake of my son. Do it now!" She cried, gripping her head with both hands as if trying to tear through the barriers herself. Without further hesitation, they had Garona kneel onto the floor in the circle in front of the stool she was sitting, which Jaina made surrounded by runes that will help her clear those blocks. Jaina's voice broke the stillness as she began the incantation. "Your true self lies behind a wall of lies, built by others, cemented by time. The stone placed recently. What I do reflects only own desires," Garona murmured. Her voice faint as the spell enveloped them both. Arcane symbols glowed brightly, circling the two women in a brilliant display. Garona's face contorted in pain and effort, her body trembling. "Encourage," she gasped before collapsing into unconsciousness. Jaina let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I've never seen such courage." Egwin nodded solemnly. "She has spoken against all odds. The boy has been taken to the ruined city of Encourage." Valeera stepped forward, resolve hardening her features. "I'll get my gear." "Jaina, is it really necessary to keep Garona in chains?" Egwin asked, kneeling before the unconscious Garona. Jaina hesitated. "I promised Varian she would remain manacled." Egwin's voice softened as she observed Garona's still form. "She truly is in a coma. But she could awaken at any time. Her mind could be affected," Jaina replied, her gaze lingering on Garona with a mix of concern and caution. The door creaked open, and an undead figure stepped into view, his presence sending a ripple of unease through the room. "I see Garona is your prisoner. Do you have her son?" he asked, his tone calm but urgent. "What? Who?" Jaina began, startled. "Trouble is coming in the form of a scourge attack. Before it arrives, I need to find the boy," the undead man said, his piercing gaze scanning the room. Valeera stepped forward, daggers drawn. "And you're what, the Scourge's undead herald?" The undead turned his attention to Egwin. "Egwin, is that you?" he asked, ignoring Valeera's challenge. "Valeera, wait," Egwin said sharply. "You know this walking corpse?" Valeera asked, lowering her weapons reluctantly. Egwin's expression softened. "I would counsel civility, Valeera. This is the legendary hero Merrill Winterstorm, a founding member of the Council of Tirisfal to which I once belonged. He was mortally wounded during the Troll Wars, but was forced by circumstance to survive as one of the undead. His purpose has ever been to protect Azeroth, and his honor was a beacon for the rest of us. In my arrogant youth, I didn't appreciate him as I should have." She turned to Merrill. "But how did you come to have Garona's son in your care?" Merrill's voice was measured but urgent. "She left the boy with me but watched over him in secret. She wanted Medan to think she was dead, but in the end he learned the truth." "And his father?" Jaina interjected. Merrill hesitated. "Garona never said. I thought it didn't matter, but..." His eyes flicked to Egwin, realization dawning. He said nothing more as the sound of the approaching scourge grew louder. "I would like to help you fight, but my duty is to Medan. I've only just begun to realize his importance in the larger scheme. There has been one attempt on his life already, if you know anything." "He was carried off by a forsaken mage," Jaina interrupted, firing a frostbolt out the window at the encroaching horde. Valeera, you're ready to go after the boy. Take Meryl with you. Valeera's face darkened with anger. No! The Scourge killed my kin and devastated my homeland. Meryl may not be Scourge, but as far as I'm concerned, undead is still undead. I want to stay and fight, not... Egwene's voice cut through her protest. Listen to me, Valeera. Your destiny, and perhaps that of all Azeroth, may well rest in Meryl's hands. Trust him. Obey him as you would obey me. Valeera's defiance faltered. All right, because you ask it of me, Egwene, but I don't like it. She turned to Meryl with a sharp look. Meryl, we go to Ahn'Qiraj. You have a mount? Meryl shook his head. I have been there. I can travel that path. Such a teleport will be fraught with risk, but it is faster than flight, and our need is desperate. Be ready. I will arrive drained. The air shimmered with magic as Meryl cast a teleportation spell, and in an instant, they vanished. Their destination, the sands of Silithus and the horrors of Ahn'Qiraj. Teleporting into the city of Ahn'Qiraj, Valeera and Meryl arrived in the midst of a nightmare. This colossal, crumbling fortress nestled deep in the sands of Silithus bore the scars of battles long forgotten. Vast, weathered walls surrounded the ruins, their surfaces marred by time and conflict. The eerie glow of a bonfire illuminated the night, casting flickering shadows across the desolate expanse. Meryl stumbled slightly, visibly weakened by the teleportation but still resolute. But our landing may be, he began. Crowded, Valeera quipped as she noticed enemies closing in. Her instincts took over and she darted forward, spotting a familiar figure, the undead mage who had taken Medan. Medan's guardian and the blood elf from the battle at Theramore. Kill them! The undead mage commanded, beginning to cast a spell. But Valeera was faster, her daggers gleaming as she charged. Not happening, you undead horror! She growled, slicing cleanly through the mage's throat. With a swift kick, she sent the lifeless body tumbling into the fire. This time you die for real. Meryl unleashed a torrent of fire spells, holding off the other enemies that surrounded them. Go into the main building, see if Medan is inside. I'll deal with our adversaries, he called out, his voice strained but firm. But there are too many, and the teleport drained your power. There's no way you can fight them all alone, Valeera protested. Do it! The sooner you get the boy, the sooner we can teleport out of here, Meryl barked back. Valeera hesitated for only a moment before sprinting toward the main building. All right, I'm gone. Never thought I, of all people, would be taking orders from a walking corpse. Inside the labyrinthine structure, Valeera descended deeper into the earth, her heart pounding. The air grew heavier, oppressive with the presence of an ancient evil. At last she entered a massive chamber, and her breath caught in her throat. A monstrous creature dominated the room, a sprawling mass of flesh writhing with countless tendrils. Its singular massive eye glowed with an otherworldly light, smaller eyes scattered across its grotesque form. The creature's gaze seemed to pierce through time and space, probing the very essence of her being. By the Sunwell! What is this place? What is that thing? What have they done to the kid? Valeera whispered. Two enemies turned toward her. Who? One began. She was at Theramore. Kill her, the others shouted, readying their weapons. But they were too slow. Valeera's daggers flew with precision, silencing them both. She retrieved her blades as she approached Medan, who hung limply from the monstrous body, bound in some form of dark magic. It's like the shell of a huge bloated tick. They've hung the boy to it like a sacrifice, she thought, cutting him free. I'll get you down from here and then... What's wrong with you? Voices. Whispering. Make them stop. Medan mumbled weakly. No kidding. Come on then. We have to go. Meryl's waiting outside, Valeera urged, supporting him as they rushed back. Emerging from the building, she saw Meryl slide across the ground, landing hard. Standing before them was a towering two-headed ogre. Far taller and bulkier than Valeera, the creature towered menacingly before her, its spiked back and shifting grotesque flesh making it appear as though it were alive. Then, one of its heads spoke. Well. What have we here? Seems the sorcerer's apprentice has come to the rescue. A moment later, the ogre's second head joined in, sneering with sadistic glee. And do I detect a demon lurking within that tiny frame? I love demons. They're so succulent and full of such delicious energy. Who are you? Valeera asked, forcing herself to stay calm. The creature loomed larger than anything she had faced, and one of its heads spoke in a high, mocking tone. I am Cho'Gall.
Now why don't you let that lovely demon residing inside you come out and face me?
Valeera's mind raced. An ogre giant? Too tall, too wide, too many heads, too terrible, she thought. What do I do now? Her eyes flicked to Meryl lying prone. Meryl was immensely powerful, and the ogre felled him easily. We're doomed unless... The mage still glows with arcane power. If I can absorb enough energy, maybe I can stay alive long enough. She whirled to Madan, explaining hastily. Madan, wake up! Listen to me! He managed to groan in reply. There's no way I can face that ogre as I am. And you and Meryl are useless. I need more energy. More everything. I'm going to take most of the energy Meryl has left. I take yours too, but you'll need it to help him get better. Her hand pressed against Meryl, siphoning the arcane power from his unconscious form. Whatever it takes to restore him, do it, Valeera urged, grimly aware of the danger. Get him functioning. Our survival depends on it. You can't teleport, I suppose. Don't have energy for 3 of us, he admitted weakly. Valeera nodded. Then Meryl's the only one who can get us out of here. I'll try to distract the ogre long enough. Just hurry. As the stolen power coursed through her veins, a bright glow flashed across her eyes. Arcane energy crackled around her body as she squared off against Cho'Gall. The ogre's second head, deeper in tone, sneered menacingly. Nearly drained the mage, didn't you? Still, his energy is but a morsel to the demon inside you. He's been quiet for a while, hasn't he? Resting, starved, biding his time. But the surge of energy has awakened him. He's beginning to stir. Can't you feel his hunger? He's right, Valeera realized, terror tightening in her gut. The demon is writhing within me, fighting to emerge. I'd kept it so weak by rationing my use of arcane energy. I'd forgotten how much stronger it could become. Doubt pinched at her thoughts. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. No! Stop second-guessing yourself. You knew the danger. Just play the hand you've drawn. Before Cho'Gall could press his advantage, she flung her daggers in a desperate attempt. The blades hurtled towards him, but with a casual flick of his hand, the ogre halted them in midair. Shock gripped her. Oh no, Valeera thought, her mouth going dry. I smell fear, young elf. Yet you seem to dread the demon inside you more than you dread me. Cho'Gall taunted, clenching his fist. Valeera dodged his first blow, only to be smacked by a backhand, his voice booming. Foolish, foolish child. When I rip you in two, I'll find that cowardly fiend still cringing inside your broken body. The force sent her crashing against a wall. Pain flared, then ebbed. A healing glow seeping through her wounds. I'm better. The boy. What Dan's doing, he's healing me, as well as Meryl. Good thing he is, but he's so focused on the spell I don't think he sees his danger. Scrambling to her feet, she sprinted for Madan, just as Cho'Gall lurched toward the youth, snarling, My master has need of you, and none may refuse him. Move like Rhaegar taught me, Valeera reminded herself. Yes, a clean slice through the hamstring tendon, and Cho'Gall will drop like a felled kodo. I hope. Maybe even given a chance to take him out. With lightning speed, she slashed at the ogre's leg. Both heads roared in unison. With that blow, the first head hissed. You have ceased to amuse me, the second added. Tendrils of dark magic coiled around his arm and leg, making him look even more monstrous. No! Valeera cried as a blast of force hurled her into another wall. Cho'Gall seized her by her cape, lifting her up with one massive hand. Let loose your demon, puny and worthless though it must be, to hide in such a weakling body, he thundered, raising Valeera to eye level. What was I thinking? No matter how much energy I take, I can't fight this monster, she lamented inwardly. The ogre pressed on, voice dripping with sadistic glee. The fiend wants out now. It's howling inside you, fighting for the chance to answer my challenge. Free him! No, she murmured, wrestling with indecision. But the demon's presence crowded her thoughts, an infernal promise that it could overpower Cho'Gall if given free rein. I'm no warlock. Once it's loosed, I can't hope to control it. Brol would say, better to die than free it. But I think it's better to live, for who knows what tomorrow might bring. Cho'Gall flung her down in frustration. Gasping, Valeera made her choice. Demon, I accept your offer. I give myself to you, if you will save me and the others. A torrent of fell energy erupted from her body, releasing a triumphant cackle. Free! Free at last! Cho'Gall sneered with anticipation. Ha! Finally. Your demon has come out to play, he bellowed, charging forward, dark magic coiling around his fists. Play? I am the Dreadlord Catherine Atir. I am not her demon. She is my vessel. She offered herself to me willingly, and this is no child's game. With that, Catherine Atir unleashed a fell blast, halting Cho'Gall in his tracks. Catherine Atir, Meryl gasped, regaining enough strength to recognize the demon. You know this demon? Medan asked, eyes wide. I thought he was gone, banished, left too weak to trouble Azeroth again, Meryl replied. Still undeterred, Cho'Gall thundered. Not a game. A test, then, to see who is stronger. His other head chimed in ominously. Whose power is greater? A strange symbol glowed beneath him, morphing his body further. One head sprouting a horn and a sharp beak, and the other turning more orc-like with massive tusks and tendrils. Which of our masters will, in the end, own this world? Cried the higher-pitched head. Cho'Gall lunged, forcing Catherine Atir to raise a shield. Despite the demon's impressive might, Cho'Gall pressed forward, nearly breaking through. You are nothing against my power, and that of my great master. Nothing! Snarled the deeper head. Medan stared in dismay. It didn't do any good. She sacrificed herself for nothing. Not nothing, Meryl whispered. She bought us time to recover, but at a terrible price. We must get her away from here before it's too late for us all. Meryl teleported himself, Medan, and Valeera outside the city, leaving Cho'Gall behind. Where are we? I thought we were going to Theramore, Medan asked, looking around. We can't. Not now. Not with Valeera. Like that. Meryl admitted, eyeing the Dreadlord coiled within her. A mocking voice drifted on the wind. Meryl Winterstorm. It's been a long time since we met. Catherine Atir, release the girl, or face my wrath, Meryl snapped. Powerful though you are, mage, you are no guardian. You have not the power to command me, Catherine Atir taunted. Meryl squared his shoulders. You're diminished, demon, forced to take refuge in the flesh of a young blood elf. Even that child could command you. The demon let out a bitter laugh. She has strength she does not yet know. She fought me, starved me, kept me weak. A flicker of pride sounded in its tone. Refused to accept what I offered until she had no choice. And she does have powerful friends. I had planned to move on to one of them eventually. Perhaps that time is now. You, Meryl, glow with arcane power, but the boy is incandescent. What a fine host he will make for me. Medan's cries echoed through the air, his voice reverberating against the ancient walls as Catherine Atir's shadow closed in. The Dreadlord's voice rose like a dark symphony, brimming with malice and allure. He caught the tormented whispers in Medan's mind, remorseless, shrieking accusations that he was powerless and worthless, echoing without mercy in the young half-breed's head. I hear it too, boy, but the voice is only an echo of the past, Catherine Atir crooned. It promises death, while I offer you life, and powers beyond the dream of redemption. Surrender to me and become greater than the gods themselves. Come, embrace me, and be mine. Medan's face twisted in defiance, his body trembling under the Dreadlord's pressure. With a sudden surge of energy, golden light exploded from him. No, he shouted, the blinding radiance throwing Catherine Atir back. The Dreadlord staggered, hissing in frustration. Now that boy was power. Such delicious potential. Together we will shake the mighty from their high thrones. Catherine Atir murmured, his voice dripping with malevolent delight. Before the Dreadlord could advance again, Meryl stepped forward, placing himself between Medan and Catherine Atir. His voice was steady, filled with an unwavering confidence. Catherine Atir, The boy is too powerful for you. You haven't strength enough to take him. Why not release the girl and try for me instead? Unless you're afraid. Meryl, no! Madan protested, trying to stop him. Meryl silenced the boy with a sharp look. Quiet, boy. I know what I'm doing. The Dreadlord's grin widened, his teeth gleaming. You offer me a place inside you? Thinking yourself powerful enough to control me? I am a Dreadlord. You were. Once, Meryl retorted. It has taken you 3,000 years to slip back into Azeroth, only to inhabit an elf child's frail shell. And even this boy has withstood your blandishments and your attack. You have not the magic to conjure your own demon body, much less confront that other darkness. Containing you should pose little difficulty. With a guttural snarl, Cothrnatir abandoned Valeera's body, his essence swirling like a dark storm as he entered Meryl. If it is a battle of wills you want, mage, we shall see whose power is greater. Meryl's body stiffened as the Dreadlord's presence invaded his mind. Madan's voice trembled. Meryl? Valeera staggered, clutching her head. Oh, bless Sunwell. I have been haunted by that writhing horror for months, and now it is over. I thank you, Meryl, for you have saved me. Meryl's voice emerged, strained but victorious. As your actions saved Madan and me. Valeera took a shaky breath, her face pale, more stupid and desperate than heroic. It was horrible, like being buried in a deep pit filled with entrails. My body, my mind weren't my own. I should have realized. I have become unclean. Can you truly bend that monster to your will? Meryl nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Valeera's shoulder. As you see, Cothrnatir is a weak thing, easily contained by one who has the ability. And you will recover. You are young. I only ask that you promise to tell no one what has happened here. No one. His gaze hardened. We wouldn't want every demon on Azeroth to take my ability to control Cothrnatir as a challenge, or to come to his aid. Meryl began casting a teleportation spell. The air shimmered around them as the spell teleported them back to Theramore. However, their return was anything but peaceful. Flames engulfed the town, smoke curling into the sky. Madan's eyes widened in horror. What happened here? He asked. Scourge attack, she said grimly. It was just starting when we left. I'd forgotten. It's been a long day. Aegwynn and Jaina approached, relief washing over their faces at the sight of the group. So this is Garona's... Aegwynn began, her voice faltering. Her gaze lingered on Madan, her expression clouded with memories. Finally, she placed a hand on his shoulder. You must be Madan. I'm Aegwynn. I expect you want to see your mother. They made their way to Garona's cell. Jaina explained, we had to chain her due to the danger she posed. Valeera then added, a promise to King Varian of Stormwind. Her effort to get past the blocks put on her mind to tell us where to find you felled her. But Madan interrupted, his voice filled with urgency. I know she attacked you, but the ogre Cho'Gall had her under a spell and Jaina opened the cell door only to find it empty. But that's impossible. She was in a deep coma, she said, bewildered. Valeera slipped away, her instincts telling her to investigate. Her thoughts raced. Garona's escaped. I vowed to serve Varian. It's my duty to go after her. Though she seems as much a victim as any she has killed. Yeah, right. Try telling that to Varian. While moving through the keep, Valeera overheard Aegwynn and Meryl talking. Garona's in Onyxia's lair, Meryl said. A better hiding place than most. Now that the dragon and her brood are dead, who would think to look for her there? Valeera's eyes narrowed. Onyxia's lair? That's mad! Still, it won't hurt to check it out. She slipped out of the keep, grabbing a wyvern, and flew to Onyxia's lair. The cavern was eerily quiet, its once mighty halls now empty except for echoes of past battles. Garona, I know you're there. I'm coming in. We need to talk, Valeera called out. A voice answered from behind her. Talk, then. She spun around to face a Draenei clad in brilliant armor. His breastplate was adorned with glowing blue gems, his silhouette regal and imposing. The massive warhammer in his hand gleamed with holy light. Swinging the hammer, he forced Valeera to dodge. Who are you? What are you doing here? She demanded, throwing a dagger. Deflecting it effortlessly, the Draenei replied. I might ask you the same questions. Their fight carried them to the mouth of the cave, neither gaining the upper hand. Suddenly, Medan's voice cut through the chaos. Wind, blast them apart! The gale threw them to opposite sides of the cavern. Medan, what are you doing here? Valeera asked, startled. What do you think? I followed you, he said, helping her to her feet. The Draenei's voice softened. You're Garona's son? My grandnephew? Medan? Nephew? Valeera echoed, surprised. Medan began to speak out, but collapsed, clutching his ears. It's come back, he cried. The voice, whispering in my head. The Draenei knelt beside him. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Now, tell me when it began. His hands glowed with holy energy as he worked to calm the boy. When Cho'Gall hurled me against the shell of the Old One, Cthulhu, Medan said, his voice steadying. The voice began like a gong vibrating in my head. And now it's quiet. I feel... Thank you. The Draenei stood, his expression grave. You've drawn the interest of something malevolent. We must speak with Jaina Proudmoore. Valeera and I will need mounts. Garona took Valeera's hippogriff. It's okay, Medan said. I know the way to Theramore. I can teleport us there. Arriving in Theramore, Egwin and Jaina came up to greet them. Egwin called out, Valeera, Medan, where have you been? Meryl approached Medan with a questioning look. You brought back a Draenei? Maraud stepped forward, his voice calm and assured. I am Vindicator Maraud. It was I who freed your prisoner, Garona. Jaina's eyes widened. You? Why should I not call my guards to arrest you then? Maraud held his ground, his tone steady. Because I would hate to engage in violence for naught. Garona is my niece, half orc, half Draenei. I had been searching for her for many years. He paused, his expression grave. Recently, I had a vision that led me here. It said that Garona would be instrumental in the salvation of Azeroth, that her actions could help avert an upcoming catastrophe. It may have something to do with Cho'Gall. Jaina's expression softened. It would seem that each of us holds a different piece of this puzzle. It is time we pooled our information in order to decide what to do next. Through their conversation, they pieced together the grim truth. Cho'Gall, leader of the Twilight's Hammer, had orchestrated the attack on Theramore and was planning something catastrophic for Azeroth. While healing Garona, Maraud had learned of a prophecy concerning Medan, a prophecy that had led to his abduction. Medan was now being stalked by an ancient evil, something beyond demons, something rooted in Ahn'Qiraj and its dark past. Valeera recounted witnessing Cho'Gall's attempts to manipulate Medan, how the ancient magic twisted him. Maraud believed Garona would play a role in the unfolding events, though her exact purpose remained unclear. But with the armies of Azeroth focused on Northrend and the Scourge, resources were stretched thin. Meryl shared a memory from long ago. 3,000 years ago, when the people of Azeroth were threatened by an influx of demons, a group of Magi in Dalaran secretly found the Council of Tirisfal to deal with them. Jaina added, the Council created a champion called a Guardian, a conduit for their power. Meryl was one of the original members of that council, and Egwin was once a Guardian. With a hint of regret in her voice, Egwin continued, Through my arrogance, the Council failed. But the time has come to begin anew. We need to form a new council. The first light of the morning made for a beautiful start to their adventure, the air thick with the scent of salt as the waves lapped gently against the docks of Theramore. Everyone had gathered, their plans laid out for the next steps. Meryl was set to head to Ironforge to consult with the trusted priest, while Maraud prepared for his journey to Outland. But before any could depart, Medan's voice cut through the quiet. Look, he said, pointing toward the sea, his voice tight with urgency. Something is coming. All eyes turned to the water, and soon, a grotesque form emerged from the depths. It towered over the waves, its slimy, rubbery hide glistening in shades of brown and green. Where its face should have been was a gaping maw lined with rows of jagged, needle-like teeth. Its eyeless form was haunting, a void where emotion or recognition should reside. What is that? Valeera asked, her tone laced with equal parts awe and horror. Meryl's gaze hardened. It must be a faceless one. They are so rare, even I have never seen one. Egwin's expression darkened. For which you should thank the light. Those horrors are juggernauts, virtually unstoppable. But why is one here? Before they could ponder further, Meryl raised a hand, launching a fireball at the creature. The flame struck true, but to his dismay, the creature seemed unfazed. My firebolts have only made it angrier. Then let us see how it likes the taste of cold, sharp steel. Valeera called, her daggers gleaming in the morning sunlight as she took her stance beside Murad. As Murad and Valeera engaged the beast, Medan doubled over, clutching his head as the whispers grew louder. The voices clawing at his mind. Egwin knelt beside him, her face etched with worry. Egwin, Murad ordered, get the boy into the keep. While he's fighting the voice, he'll have no energy left to combat the monster. A faceless one can crush the walls of the keep as easily as it crushed that pier, Egwin muttered, glancing at the shattered remains of wood scattered across the shore. I hate this weakness. In days past, I could have led the battle against the creature. Now I can but cower here. Suddenly, a dagger landed at her feet. Egwin, take it, throwing her one of her daggers. Not the weapon you're used to, I know, but better than nothing. You may need it. Egwin gripped the dagger tightly, rising to her feet just as the faceless one surged toward them. With a deft slash, she drove the blade into its slimy hide. Keep away from the boy, monster, she roared. While there is breath in my body, you will not have him, nor will the one who sent you. Meanwhile, Murad's voice carried across the chaos. Medan, the voice is trying to drain your will. Wrap yourself in the light. Block the whispers. Above them, more enemies descended. Wyverns with dark riders flew in, their claws ready to rend and tear. Cho'Gall attacks on 3 fronts, with murmurs, monsters, and minions. He must fear Medan greatly, Egwin said, glancing at the struggling boy. Merrill, his face set in grim determination, called out, The rest of you, destroy Cho'Gall's minions. I'll deal with the monster. Valeera hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. But Merrill, your firebolts don't work. You said as much yourself. She was cut off as a wyvern's rider struck her, sending her reeling. Egwin narrowed her eyes at Merrill. What's wrong with you, Merrill? Your blasts hardly sting that creature. I'm weakened by the difficulty that is afflicting all the Magi, he responded curtly. But Egwin wasn't convinced. She knew something deeper was amiss. She was right. Merrill was splitting his focus between casting his spells and containing Cothran Atir within him. The Dreadlord's presence was a constant weight, clawing at the edges of Merrill's control. Desperate for a solution, Cothran Atir whispered insidious promises, using Merrill to unleash his power. Be silent, demon, and fight! Merrill snarled, his voice a mix of fury and resolve. Drawing on both his power and the demons, he began to tear the Faceless One apart, piece by monstrous piece. But it wasn't enough. The creature's resilience was unnatural. Medan fought against the maddening whispers in his mind, clutching his fist as he gathered his power. With a surge of will, he called down a lightning bolt from the heavens. The radiant energy crashed into the Faceless One, its unearthly screech echoing through the port before it collapsed into a lifeless heap. Murad finished off the remaining assassins, while Medan rushed to Valeera, who was slumped against a wall, catching her breath. Valeera, you're hurt, he exclaimed, concern etched on his face. Just a scratch, she replied weakly. Uh-huh. Murad could probably do this better, but he's busy, Valeera said, managing a faint smile. Medan placed his hands over her wound, his voice steady. Light shine on her and restore her, spirit of the earth, knit her flesh. Slowly the healing energies flowed into Valeera. After a moment she took a deep breath and pushed herself to her feet. Then as she glanced around, she realized that Rhaegar had arrived sometime during the battle. As the companions parted ways to embark on their individual journeys, Valeera accompanied Rhaegar on a critical mission, recruiting new members for the newly formed Council of Tirisfal. Their first destination took them to the vast golden plains of Mulgore, where their intended recruit was rumored to dwell. Soaring through the skies atop their mounts, they spotted a Tauren locked in battle against a swarm of Quillboar. These brutish creatures, half the size of the towering Tauren, bristled with razor-sharp quills protruding from their backs, shoulders, and arms. The Tauren's deep, resonant voice thundered across the plains as he called upon nature's fury. Lightning, scour this blight from our burial ground, so our dead may rest in peace. A cascade of lightning bolts tore through the sky, striking the Quillboar with deadly precision. Within moments, the battlefield fell silent. The charred remains of the creatures scattered across the sacred ground. Valeera's emerald eyes widened in admiration. That was amazing, Rhaegar. I can see why Jaina wants Hamul on the council. Rhaegar nodded solemnly. He is very powerful. But aren't most Tauren shaman like you? Valeera asked, her curiosity piqued. Rhaegar's gaze remained fixed on the archdruid below. During the Battle of Mount Hyjal, Hamul was inspired by the dedication of the druids. Malfurion Stormrage himself took him as a pupil. Hamul is now an archdruid. Few attain that rank, even among the Night Elves. As their mounts descended, the Tauren glanced skyward, his stoic face calm but watchful. Hamul Rune Totem stood as a towering figure of wisdom and power, his muscular frame draped in robes of earthen hues, adorned with intricate designs of nature's cycles. He had one large, curved horn on the right side of his head, while the other appeared to have broken off, whether in battle or by some other means remained a mystery, and his deep brown fur glistened with faint traces of dew from the elements he communed with. Rhaegar, you keep unusual company these days, Hamul rumbled, his voice carrying a note of curiosity as Valeera and Rhaegar landed. Rhaegar approached, gesturing toward his companion. I fly with Valeera Sanguinar, my ally, and Jaina Proudmore's. Hamul's gaze shifted to Valeera. Valeera? The Valeera who was once your gladiator? A champion in Dire Maul? Rhaegar's expression darkened slightly. Time changes many things, old friend, and not all for the better. Our world is threatened. Hamul nodded solemnly. By many evils. Thrall has told me something of your plan. I would hear more. With that, Valeera and Rhaegar got back on their mounts, while Hamul shifted into his flight form, and they all headed back to Theramore. The sun dipped below the horizon as they approached, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. Jaina, you're back! Valeera called out as they descended toward the keep. Jaina stepped forward, her flowing robes catching the evening breeze. With a warm smile, she extended her hand to Hamul as he dismounted. Hamul, this is a true pleasure. Come inside and we will talk about why you have all been asked to come here, she said, gesturing toward the keep. On the dock, two figures awaited. The first to appear was Crank Axeljink, a gnome with a wiry frame perpetually smeared with soot and grease. Green-tinted goggles perched on his forehead, while a red tank top and brown pants gave him a bold utilitarian look. Around his waist, a green belt bristling with an array of tools testified to his ceaseless tinkering. Beside him stood Rohan, a dwarf of sturdy build and quiet dignity. His braided gray hair framed a face that had clearly seen its fair share of battles. And he wore a robe of brown and white tones that hinted at more than a little experience in the field. On his hands, a pair of light brown gloves bore the scuffs and marks of many past skirmishes. Following their discussion, the group moved outside, greeted by the warm sun reflecting off the shimmering ocean. The peaceful moment was abruptly interrupted as Jaina's eyes locked on the horizon. Elementals, dozens of them, were gathering, more than she had ever seen in one place, surrounding Theramore Keep like an ominous tide. In moments, they will be upon us, Hamul warned, his deep voice echoing with urgency. Crank perked up. I've got just the thing, he exclaimed, pointing to a large ramshackle machine perched nearby. This beauty can take out a lot of them in one swipe. Merrill frowned, his expression skeptical. Machinery won't work against elementals, Crank. It's a waste of time. But Crank was undeterred. With hurried instructions, he handed helmets to the group, explaining that the machine will channel their energy into it, and then Crank will release the energy in one powerful blast that he will use to smite the enemies that are coming. As the group reluctantly complied, Crank fired at the machine. Moments later, the cannon sputtered ominously before exploding in a deafening blast, sending Crank flying forwards. Jaina quickly cast a shield to protect herself, Merrill, and Rohan from the flying shrapnel. Rohan rushed to Crank's side, channeling healing light into the disoriented gnome. The elementals launched their assault, crashing against Theramore's defenses like a relentless storm. Merrill stepped forward, unleashing an ice blast to slow their advance. As I said, he muttered grimly, machinery was not the answer. We better find a way to join our forces, or there will be no council to speak of. Jaina, firing an arcane blast into the fray, responded, But Merrill, there's no time to consecrate the council. We must fight these beings as best we can. The council members sprang into action. Rhaegar called lightning from the heavens, striking down elementals with precision, while Hamul summoned roots from the earth to ensnare their foes. Valeera fought alongside Aegwynn and Rohan near the keep. Aegwynn, take this knife, Valeera called out, tossing her a dagger. Even Rohan may not be able to shield us forever. The battle raged on as Murad swooped into the fray on a griffin, flanked by a blood elf on a wyvern. From the air, Murad aimed for an earth elemental, wielding his hammer with devastating force. Despite their efforts, the council's strength began to wane. Hamul was struck down, his massive form collapsing to the ground. Hold on, Hamul, I'll heal you, Rohan cried, rushing to his side to channel healing light. The situation grew dire, and Merrill knew that unleashing Catherine's full strength would risk exposing his role as the demon's vessel. Yet he saw no other option. With great reluctance, he released the fell power coursing through him, clinging to control even as a torrent of fell magic erupted. Bolstered by the council's combined might, the group finally turned the tide of the battle. As the final elemental fell, the keep lay in ruins, parts of its walls and roof destroyed. Hamul, though healed, needed time to fully recover. The group's exhaustion was palpable, but before they could catch their breath, a shadow passed overhead. Brol Bearmantle descended in his flight form, shifting into his night elf shape as he landed. "Spirits of growing things, arise!" Brol called, his voice filled with ancient power. "Send up your roots to bind and crush our foes, and drag their shattered shards beneath the earth and sea." The ground erupted with roots, capturing and destroying the last remnants of the elemental horde. Theramore was saved, though barely. Hamul approached Brol, extending his hand. Valeera ran to Brol, throwing her arms around his neck in an exuberant hug. "Oh, Brol, I'm so glad you're here. I have so much to tell you. You got back just in time, but where?" "Hamul and I were among the druids Fandral summoned to bolster Teldrassil's health," Brol explained. "Fandral says the tree is recovering rapidly, and he can manage the rest alone. He gave me leave to come here." With the immediate threat dealt with, the council regrouped to discuss their next steps. Merrill, however, spoke with a tone of finality. "I cannot remain part of the council," he announced. "As the vessel for Kathra, I pose too great a risk. The demon's presence within me could compromise everything. It is best for Azeroth that I remain apart." Following the meeting, Egwene, Valeera, and Merrill ventured ahead to Ahn'Qiraj, hoping to reach Garona before the others. Merrill may not be a part of the council, but he knew he had to go and help Garona. Merrill teleported the three to the ruined city. Looming before them when they arrived atop the wall of the complex, its ancient spires twisted by time and corruption. As they entered the crumbling remains of the Qiraji stronghold, Valeera learned that Garona had already infiltrated the depths and was on the verge of entering Cthulhu's chamber. Though they had initially planned to wait for her return, their plan changed when they spotted one of Cho'Gall's elemental guards stationed nearby. Knowing Garona would need help, Valeera acted without hesitation. She leapt from the broken walls, using the jagged stonework to descend swiftly and silently. Just as Garona emerged from the chamber, Valeera tackled her out of harm's way, just in time to avoid the crushing fist of an earth elemental. The ground trembled beneath them as the elemental's attack missed its mark, shattering the stone floor instead. The battle with Cho'Gall had begun. Garona and Valeera attempted to charge at him, but the monstrous ogre mage was far from alone. Two massive Anubis-Seth statues, their obsidian forms etched with glowing runes, rumbled to life and moved to intercept them. Valeera shouted for Garona to move, and just as the statues lunged, roots erupted from the ground, entangling them. Madan had arrived, his power manifesting as nature itself came to his aid. Meanwhile, Egwene and Merrill found themselves under attack by a wave of elementals. Just as the creatures were about to overwhelm them, a bolt of lightning ripped through the sky, incinerating them where they stood. The reinforcements were here. As the battle raged on, Cho'Gall gathered energy from ritual stones scattered throughout the city, his form distorting with dark power. Madan, sensing the increasing danger, acted quickly. He formed a shimmering dome around them, containing the energy within the battlefield, but also trapping them all in an increasingly volatile situation. Merrill knew they only had one chance, though it was dangerous. He proposed calling upon the power of Kathra. With little time and few options, the risk was necessary. He cast a protective barrier around himself, Egwene, Valeera, and Garona, shielding them from the destructive energy swirling around them. However, maintaining both the barrier and his control over the demon was too much. His focus wavered and the shield began to falter. A blast of Cho'Gall's energy tore through their defenses, striking Egwene directly. She staggered but refused to fall, her body radiating defiance even as pain racked her form. Merrill's grip on Kathra slipped further, and in an instant, the demon broke free into the twisting nether, seeking the source of Madan's power. Desperate to turn the tide, Garona realized the key lay in Madan's inheritance, his father's staff. Clutching the relic tightly, she rushed forward. But before she could reach her son, an arcane blast struck her down. Valeera, unwilling to let her fall, surged forward, dodging another barrage and shouting over her shoulder, "Do something useful, Merrill, and stop that stupid demon!" Merrill, momentarily paralyzed by indecision, looked to Egwene, who, despite her weakened state, met his gaze with resolve. "I too am no stranger to overweening pride. Self-reclamation? And the duplicity of demons, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. Once, I betrayed the trust of my guardianship and placed this world in peril. Now, I will atone. Let my death strike a blow for Azeroth, Meryl. Help me save my grandson. Egwene channeled the last of her strength into Meryl, who took her power and transferred it to Medan. Meanwhile, Valeera caught up to Garona, lifting her up despite her own injuries. A few more steps and... she began, but before they could reach Medan, another explosion struck them both, sending them into the air and landing on the ground, knocking them out. The battle seemed lost until reinforcements arrived. A portal burst open as Brol, Jaina, and the others rushed through. Brol shifted into his bear form, scooping Valeera from the ground, unconscious but alive. Before Cothranetir could cause any more trouble or take any more lives, Mara was able to rein him back into his body, becoming the demon's jailer once again. The battle ended in devastation. Though they had survived, it had come at great cost. Later, the remaining members of the group gathered at Morgan's plot, the graveyard west of Karazhan, to bury Egwene and mourn her passing. There, they deliberated on what would come next. Garona, standing beside Meryl, nodded. I will go after the Twilight's hammer. I will take down as many of them as I can. She turned to Valeera. If you can explain what happened to Varian, perhaps he'll call off his hounds. Valeera hesitated before nodding. She knew convincing Varian wouldn't be easy, but she would try. Meryl sighed. His once proud name was now a bitter weight. From now on, he said, I will no longer be known as Winterstorm. I have wielded fell energy. I have used it to save Azeroth, and so I will carry its mark. From this day forward, I am Meryl Fellstorm. With that, they parted ways, knowing that the battle against Cho'Gall and the horrors of the old gods was far from over. So before we end off, I just wanted to take a bit to talk about Medan and kind of the weirdness of the end fight and kind of my frustration with figuring this all out, or what to put in and what not to put in. So him being Guardian is not canon. He himself is canon. So when I was trying to figure out what to include, basically anything that was mentioning him being Guardian or possibility of him being Guardian or his actions as a Guardian, I left out because I wanted to keep it as canon as possible, which made the final fight very weird because there's a lot of it that revolves around Medan being the Guardian, and for example, when Cothranetir escapes Meryl's body, he goes to find everyone who's funneling their powers into Medan, which is when he kills the Blood Elf who Marat had brought along. Now, technically, all of that would still happen. It would just be minus the fact that Medan is Guardian. So in the final fight, in my head, everyone's in Encourage, fighting as hard as they can. Whether it's like one final big, everyone channels their power at Cho'Gall, he dies, or gets knocked down, whatever the case may be. Or however it goes, it would just end with the fact that it wasn't Medan who was solely there using everyone's abilities. Which would be a super cool thing to see with everyone there fighting in Encourage instead of just Medan. So just wanted to kind of get that out there, because I was very confused in how to word stuff and what to put in and what not to put in. But that was basically what I ultimately decided on, is the simple fact that anything that involved him mentioned as Guardian, being Guardian, using Guardian abilities was left out as much as I could. Bits of it I'd left in just for the fact that otherwise it would be a very, very short end bit where they arrive to help Garona and then it ends. That would basically be it, because everything in the middle is Medan using his Guardian powers and all of that. So that's why it might have seemed a bit short and just not super in-depth, is because I really avoided a lot of the Guardian stuff that he does. But either way, with all that said, hopefully you did enjoy. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.